Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our tips and tricks series for Golf Blitz. Today we will be covering a course that I actually have a lot of fun with because it's got very bizarre structures that are really kind of fun to experiment with and figure out the best method of getting around. That is one of the Tours 14s. And it is the Beach Tour specifically. Now, this is obviously inspired by different sandcastle type builds, and it's really well done, so I have a lot of fun playing this course whenever it comes up in ladder play. So let's have a look at the different holes in this tour and a couple of methods that you can use to be a little bit more successful when they come your way. As we get started, make sure to check and see if you are subscribed to the channel. If you're not, please fix that for me real quick, as we've got daily variety content coming to you on this channel. And if you find today's video helpful, interesting, and or enjoyable, make sure that you hit that like button. So without further ado, let's go to the beach. So this first hole can be a little bit tricky depending on what you've got. Fortunately, we do have one of the power-ups that makes this a little easier, that being the Super Ball. But as you've seen here, you can mess it up if you don't have the accuracy high enough on it. So it is a gamble, but if you can get that first shot to go a little more smoothly for you, like that second go there, you'll actually be doing fairly well for yourself. Now in this next section, it can be a little bit tricky, but depending on how close you are to that little pillar there, you may be able to make your way up and over the top in one shot as opposed to getting closer to it. If not, take a closer follow-up shot to get to that little crest and then make your way over to the green as quickly as possible. Apart from that, if you don't have something to let you access that far pillar at the start as easily, then you will want to try and make sure that you use something that allows you to safely nest in that central pillar. Now, this one can be a little bit interesting as well. There's a couple of different options that you can try for, depending on what you have. Now here, you saw that the shield ball didn't really help us out there, which it can if you get the trajectory right on it, but it's a pretty tall task as you pop up pretty high in the air there. So unless you know exactly what you're going for and spend a lot of time practicing that, you're honestly going to be better trying for this other path. Now, I think it's best to use this portion right here to get down into this area, and the reason I believe that is because you can get a nice little roll up here onto this lower section as opposed to having to shoot over and across the top. And then once you've made it into the bottom portion of that hole there, you're really not having too many problems or issues with getting the following shot. Again, if you can get like a sticky ball at that initial spot, you can really kind of cut a lot of the fluff out of that. Now here is another hole that can be really kind of tricky. And again, you can bypass a lot of it if you use the Super Ball here. But again, it requires a decent amount of precision to actually get that right. So we are going to try it one more time to see if we can get that lucky placement into the middle of this trough. And we overshot yet again. It's a very risky play, but you can get it to work in your favor if you are very particular with where you're aiming it. However, if not, the next best thing that you can do is to kind of come off this end, and that's easier said than done as well. You can take a bit of a higher bank shot over here on the end and maybe make your way down onto this bottom platform. But most people are just going to kind of make their way onto this area here and then see if they can get a bank shot right down into the actual putting green there. And that's a lot easier to do if you have the heavy ball or the putty ball there's a lot of different options that you can go with there. But the easiest thing to do and the safest play to make is to make your way down to this final little area here and then roll your way over onto the putting green. We didn't finish things off, but there are a couple of things that we showcased there that you can use to your advantage when you're trying to finish out that course in particular. And again, depending on what resources you have, it's going to be either significantly easier or far more difficult based off of what you're able to utilize with your elixir. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of what we were talking about a moment ago, this is the alternate strategy that you can use for getting down to the putting green. If you have the gooey ball, you can just kind of bypass everything along your way down there, ideally landing right here on the green, but the best place to really do that is from this top tower here. Otherwise, you're really not going to have a good chance at making it down into that green section of the hole with that gooey ball, and you'll have to make a shorter follow-up if that's the case. So here's another hole that can be pretty fun, and again, it depends on your ability to skip this first section here, because the real area of this hole starts when you get down into this lower area. Now, again, you may be able to make a shot down here and bypass the top section. It's a little narrow, so you're going to need to have something with high accuracy or the ability to negate a couple of the trickier bits. The spider ball can work really well, the sticky ball, a lot of things like that can do well enough. You also have to take into consideration that you're not going to get as easy of a shot there if you have a bunch of opponents stacked up in that little room. So just kind of be wary when going for that direct shot down to the green. Otherwise, you'll want to wrap around the top to take the safer path. And then here we have another hole that can be pretty fun. I do think that it's worth using the sniper ball to get right down here if you have it available to you. You won't always have that luxury, but otherwise you're going to be competing with a bunch of your opponents up here, and that becomes especially tricky if you have to deal with grenades and other types of sabotage. From here, there's a couple of routes you can take. You'll either want to take a bank shot off of the front area here so you don't have to deal with any back blow, or if you have something with sufficient power, you'll want to bank off of this back wall and skip that water hazard at the back and roll closer towards the hole that way. But a counterplay that you can do there is hitting powerfully into your opponents that are on the green, so you have to watch out for that. And then this hole can be really fun if you play your cards right. And I may have just missed that, which is fine. There are a couple of things that you can do to kind of get around this. And if I come down here, I might be able to use that super ball a little bit more to my advantage, since it doesn't have to recoil as far. And yes, I was able to skip a lot of this doubling back nonsense down here by using that. Now, of course, you have the other option of using a gooey ball to stick over to this side wall if you have access to that. So just kind of be mindful and aware of those options if you have them available to you. But the super ball is a very underestimated tool for getting through this course a lot quicker. So here's another hole that is very straightforward. You've just got to make your way down through this first pipe that brings you down here to the end. And the only real way that you can bypass this is if you have the sticky ball, but even then it's not really great because you can't take the shot from the top area down here and just bypass this area. I suppose the other tool is the burrow ball, which you get at level 45. And at that point, you can really bypass large sections of basically any course, but that's more of an advanced mechanic for those who actually have that available to them. So unless you're at that high level of play, you'll just want to play this course normally. I keep forgetting how many different holes there are on this course. Now for this next one, I honestly think that the better place to go to is one of these side options, because it will roll you over farther along the putting green that's on that top platform, because you don't want to be stuck in the middle, especially if you are in a 4-person free-for-all match, because then you're depending on your opponents to go one way or the other, or you've got to then use your resources to knock through them more often than not, unless you have the saw ball or the ghost ball to negate the effect of them being in your way. And then here we'll go ahead and demonstrate real quick with the alternate account, as soon as I have enough elixir for this power up to be applied, that this hole really takes on a whole new meaning once you've got the gooey ball available to you, because you can just bypass a lot of the nonsense that happens here. And I'll go ahead and scroll down here, because you'll probably need to wait for another spot of the gooey ball to activate in order to make your way onto that putting green. But once you're up at the higher levels of play, you can turn over 2 of those shots fairly quick, one after the other. The only other way to really get around that is by using the space ball, but the gooey ball is far better in that specific circumstance. And we'll go ahead and talk about this one as well, because this is another one that you can bypass with the gooey ball once you have it. We'll go ahead and showcase a little bit of this trajectory from the alternate account, and we're at just high enough of an angle where we're still able to make our way down to the bottom portion of the course off of sticking to that wall. So if you don't have access to the gooey ball, but you have the super ball, you can use the method we demonstrated earlier, and this one's probably a little more reliable if we're being honest. So here is another hole that we haven't highlighted just yet. And honestly, the best route for this, with one very specific exception, is to bank off that wall like I've just demoed. You can occasionally make your way down into this lower section with a very favorable bounce, but that requires a little bit of some higher power, and then you've just got to make this approach. The only exception is if you have the gooey ball and you can stick over to that left side wall and negate all of the double back. But that's really the only alternate route that you would ever use on that hole. Well, I've played through the course a couple of extra times just to make sure that we've covered everything, and I do believe that to be the case. But do you feel like there's anything that I left out? Make sure to let me know in the comments down below if you did. Again, if you found today's video helpful, interesting, or enjoyable, make sure that you drop that like, and please subscribe for that daily variety content. Thanks so much for your time, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.